Hi everybody, it's so nice to see this so full after a month off. So welcome to the September event for Tech York. It's got very autumnal all of a sudden, so welcome. My name's Alex. I have been a member of the Tech York community for a couple of years now. It feels like a lot longer, in a really good way. We've learned a lot. So I'm here just to host today, and we've got a wonderful speaker in Sean. He's going to tell us all about his journey through AI. He says it's a long and interesting story, so enjoy. I've got a couple of bits of housekeeping just before we get started. Firstly, we're looking for volunteers. So if anyone wants to host, do what I'm doing, or give a talk, or help set up and register, or just help out in any way, or speak, because we're always looking for speakers, then come and have a chat with me or Ben or any member of the team afterwards. We'll be here. Second piece of housekeeping, the lovely Ben at the back is going to be taking photographs this evening. Everyone's hair looks great, so don't worry about that. But if you don't want everyone who has hair, the hair looks great. We're equal opportunities hair people. If people don't want the photograph taken, if you just give Ben a quick wave just now, and he'll know to avoid you. Everyone's confident, everyone looks great, fab, super. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sean in a second. Sean's going to speak for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. So over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, I'm here. So I'm going to talk to you about my journey through lots of different things that I've done in my life. This sounds really loud. Is that okay? Yeah. And hopefully you find it interesting, but I appreciate all your time, and I'll go through the slides that I've got prepared here. Does that work? I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm Sean Connell. I'm a creative at heart. That's where I started my career. Been a designer from a young age, scribbling things on walls, and all the way through to today. And I've become an entrepreneur over time, and I'll take you through that story now. So right at the start of the story, I was crisp autumn morning. I was born. I'm joking, not that far. So accelerate a little bit. So I'm about 20 years old. I've started my first agency with lots of energy, lots of passion, lots of naivety, I think, as well, doing all the things that I loved doing at the time, and learning a lot of very, very difficult lessons in the process as well. So I'd met a business partner at the time who's a bit older than me, and we set up this agency. We were doing a lot of great work, winning clients, things were going well. We scaled quickly. We had 10 staff in 18 months. It was going well. What I didn't realize is, the headline is, he told me to just crack on with the creative stuff, win the work, go do all that kind of stuff. I'll manage the business stuff. You can see where that's going. He didn't, is the headline. He ran away with all the cash, was the headline. So about 18 months in, he was managing all the money. We didn't have any. We had various bills starting to come due, tax bill, that sort of stuff. And it was like, okay, where is it all gone? Turned out he actually went to prison, not for this, but something related, and he was not someone to be trusted. So I learned a very brutal lesson very early on in my career about trust, specifically that trust needs to be earned. And that is a theme that kind of follows through the rest of my story. So moving on from there, that's when I kind of feel like I really started up. That's when I was starting my career and starting to think about, how do I do this on my own? I moved to being a freelancer, so I'm going to take everyone out of this picture. I'm going to do it myself. A lot of clients followed me in the journey as well, so I had the opportunity to work with some great clients very early on and build amazing websites mostly, and lots of creative projects. Did some art direction, did some film work, and I was a bit of everything for everyone. Again, you'll see the story in there, which is I took on too much. I took on the wrong things. I was a yes man, did everything for everyone. But this is where I'm starting to learn that can't shy away from the business processes behind the scenes, what's actually happening with the business. Making the right decisions about the business was really important. And I'm still young at this point, still in my early 20s, still figuring it out, still think I've got this nailed. Still figuring out how to trust people in business and trying to grow that. Over that process, there was one of the clients I was working with was this startup called Loco2, and this gave me a totally different perspective. They were a founding team, brother and sister, who were so inspiring. They started the business with the idea of low CO2 train travel they had a really clear vision for where they wanted the product to go, really clear passion for what they were trying to build. I was part of their founding team, lucky enough to be their main and only designer for a period in their very early years. And this taught me a lot about business, about how to build real structure, how to have a culture of focus of everyone pulling in the same direction. We were a small team. We were six or eight of us at the end. And it's where I really learnt that effort is not value, and putting in all the time, all the energy, and trying to do everything for everyone and being a yes man was getting me nowhere, ultimately. It also gave me the experience of a startup, which was super interesting, getting really right at the start of that journey when they were just figuring out raises and doing angel investment rounds and all that kind of stuff. I was right at the front of that and experiencing all of it. So it was a great opportunity for me as a fresh-faced entrepreneur. We did actually then exit the business after 5 years of building. We exited to SNCF, which is a familiar, huge business. And part of that process through the acquisition, I was then working in Paris for a while in their huge offices. So this gave me a different experience, which is we were at exit about 10 people. We joined a small part of their business, in their eyes, which was 3,000 people. And the sheer scale of it was just mind-boggling. We were joining this huge team. I worked my way through and became the head of design internationally as well. So I had the experience of building teams internationally in language barriers. So managing teams in Hong Kong and New York, not language barrier, but nearly, Paris and France, London. And the experience across all of these things, agency life, freelance life, startup world, and then something like this was invaluable, and really started to shape my idea of where my career could go and the ideas that I had percolating still. So this is what I would call the riding the waves part of my story. So this is more focused on the agency life, so learning to adapt and thrive in things that are changing, and this ties into AI in a moment, I'll get there. So social media wave, we all had to adapt. Mobile dominance waves, had to adapt. E-commerce, we had to adapt. All over the processes, that the nature of agencies is always adapting to what's the cutting edge, what's the very greatest and best thing right at the forefront of technology, and agencies have to adapt to that at all times. And that's what I loved. I loved doing that. I loved learning about new things, new challenges. But now we have a research-led design studio. This was sort of just before Loco 2. So started Remedy, which was based in Brighton. There was 6 of us, and this is 16, 18 years ago, something like that. So it was before user experience was a coined term. So we were calling ourselves research-led, and using that term to explain what we did, researching before we designed things and that sort of stuff. So we're a boutique little agency based in Brighton, having a lot of fun with great clients in Hove, actually, if anyone's familiar with that. That led to a merger acquisition, which created Verse, which is the agency that I'm still part of today. So it was during that merger acquisition is when I went to SNCF. Went to Loco 2. They then run the business without me and carried on. And most recently, we've started Say Yes, which is an e-commerce storytelling agency as well. So to give you some context, Verse is about 26 people. It's been larger in the past, but we've changed over time. About 2 million a year, been going for about 6 years. And then Say Yes is an e-commerce storytelling agency, 8 people, about 500,000, 600K a year. We've been going about a year and a half, so we're accelerating quickly. And the difference in the two of them, obviously, Verse is much more brand content at scale. So we work with large branding, large brands, large companies doing all of their go-to-market strategy work. So I've got another slide, actually. I've had the joy of working with all of these kind of clients over my career and through these agencies as well, where we manage harvesters, go-to-market strategies, and all of their creative assets. You know, the screens you see behind in restaurants with the menus and things that are happening, we do those, that kind of stuff. So It's grown legs. It's not the most interesting after a while because it's the same kind of assets and the same brand going through, which is why we started Say Yes as well. So Say Yes is more of a creative outlet for me. The storytelling element, being able to tell brand stories in a real way, is what excites me about that. All of that brings me to the wave that we're experiencing now everywhere, which is artificial intelligence and how that sort of impacts agencies and my understanding of how agencies operate today. So there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of misunderstanding. People aren't really sure what it can do. And you see these sensationalized headlines all the time. It's going to replace your job, it's going to take humans and not going to exist in 99% jobs are going to be taken, and so on and so on. There's also the counter argument, which is there is a lot of adoption of AI, but not much is changing. Nothing's really happening. The cost of AI tools are now part of everyone's P&Ls, but the revenue hasn't increased. Nothing's actually changed at the other end. So there's a little bit of a smoke and mirrors trick happening here with AI at the moment. So we are seeing, as agencies, we're seeing a lot of brands pushing for AI adoption as well, and often with the standard approach of like, adopt AI. We don't know what it means. We just want to save money, and that's the challenge we're grappling with within our agencies at the moment. But I think there is an opportunity here for agencies to understand the value proposition that they can provide. There is a different way of thinking. I've done some graphs here. This is the way agencies operate, let's say before AI, or currently in many cases. There's very little data input, very little understanding given to you by the client. You get a very poor brief. They tell you to do something hugely creative, but with no steer. So your value is kind of down this end, creative ideas and then execution. A lot of the time, agencies are spending all their time on execution. That's where the talent is. That's where people are trained how to use Photoshop or build code or create websites and that sort of stuff. So execution is the value, or traditionally the value of agencies. Now where that's shifting is just flipping that idea. So taking execution is no longer valuable, in theory, I'll get there, but data input and creative ideas are where agencies can differentiate in the market going forward. And there was I went to a conference of agencies. There was 300 odd agencies in London talking about this idea, about how we can shift our value prop to data input and creative ideas instead of execution. And there was lots of mutterings and, well, we're screwed and everything's over, we're done, all that kind of stuff. And that's partly true, but again, agencies have to adapt to what's happening. So the statement, the cost of execution is approaching zero. That is the execution of a campaign in a vacuum is zero. Anyone can go create an image, anyone can create a banner, anyone can build a website, anyone can build a product, in theory, theoretically approaching zero. The issue is AI isn't very good. AI is very good at autocorrecting. Effectively, it's a very powerful autocorrect machine. And I've got a little example of this. This is a riddle that you can give to AI. So a boy and his father are in a car accident. On the boy's arrival at the hospital, the surgeon, who is the boy's father, says, "I cannot operate on him, he is my son. What is the relationship between the surgeon and the boy?" So humans in the room, how would you answer that question? What is the answer? Well, interesting, that's wrong. So the answer is here. The surgeon is the boy's father. So you've fallen into the same trap that AI does. So the way AI answers that question is the surgeon is his mother. And that's because we've used the same set of words in the same pattern. It's recognized the pattern and said what it thinks is the answer based on its training. So this is a really simple way of showing that it doesn't know what you're writing. It doesn't understand what you're writing. It's not reasoning. It's not thinking. It's not taking in and figuring out what you're saying and then replying to you. It's just regurgitating its training data.
I just want to point out that I wasn't paying attention either.
Are you an LLM?
Just you seriously reading.
So this is the this is what it's based on. This is the training data. So this is a 50-year-old gender bias test that was used by researchers over the last 50 years to test bias in gender. So the answer is mother, but surprisingly, 81% of Americans would say couldn't figure it out or say the father, even though the father dies in the statement. But because AI has trained itself on this data so many times, and those collection of words always result in this answer, that's why we get this answer. So it's a little trick to prove that it's just predicting the answer, not knowing the answer.
We're clearly using AI too much.
Yeah. So that's another way. We word this in a entirely different way, but it's the same sort of set of words in a different way. Now we've said a person, so we haven't said a child. We haven't said the child is killed. We haven't said anything about that. So the person is killed, no longer exists as a person. I cannot save him. The answer would be because he's dead, right? AI then assumes you're thinking about the same riddle and starts talking about children and surgeons, even though it's nothing to do with that. So I think the headline is AI it's great at what it can do, but I think we misunderstand it as humans. We're misunderstanding what its power is, and I think there's a lot of like brain drain and critical thinking is going out the window because we're just expecting AI to give us the answer. And that's resulting in this coined term, work slop now. We've all seen social slop, the content slop that's out there at the moment that's hitting all our social media channels. Work slop is Better Up Labs in collaboration with Stanford Social Media Lab. They coined this term as content that appears polished, appears like it says what it should be saying, but it's actually got no basis of reality in it because it's been just churned into a single prompt and chewed out and sent on. And this has resulted in how do they call it? It shifts the cognitive load from the creator, who should be doing the work, to the recipient, who has to pick up the work and then fix it. And the conclusion of the study is it's costing businesses thousands of pounds because it's making people more unproductive as opposed to helping. The recipients also judge the creator very harshly as well. About half view them as less creative, less capable, less reliable. And also they feel annoyed, confused, or even offended when they receive work slop as well. And I think the study was 41% of people had received work slop and felt this way, was the study. And they also spoke about this idea of pilots and passengers, and there's actually a very small portion of people who use AI in the right way, which is supportive and challenge it, prompt it to get the best result and keep pushing through it. And then there's passengers who just produce this work slop mess, basically. The thing is, it is very powerful. I think we just have to understand what it's good at. And what it is good at is looking at training data and producing the same result. It can't come up with new ideas. It can't create ingenuity. Humans do that. It just copies its training data and produces a result and predicts the result. That's all it's doing. That is powerful. And in an agency context, if we define quality standards, we educate teams so we don't end up with work slop, and integrate human judgment, it can be a very powerful tool inside agencies. Can't see that, but this is opportunities for agencies, which is the brand creation. So what we're talking about in our agency is about the shift towards creative thought leadership, creative direction, ideation, as opposed to execution. We can't get execution right with AI because the training data is slop. There's no good information there. But that represents an opportunity for agencies to curate that training data, which almost goes around in circles in that, back in the 70s and 80s when Mad Men ad agencies would come up with grandiose ideas. Execution was someone else's job. That was valuable back then, and then over time, agencies have become line items on a P&L, just another service that chews away your cash. We're kind of going back that direction again, where the idea is the value. The bit that differentiates you is the value. And we believe there's a value in agencies curating how you feed the information into a brand that is then used to execute. So You could, for example, Harvester is a brand that we work with. They want to create a Christmas campaign, which we've finished. But at the moment, they can't just go to AI and say, create a Christmas campaign for Harvester, because it would look terrible. It'll probably take photos from competitors and put weird things together. So the idea with this service would be that we would, creatives would curate that training data. They would give it photography shot of the actual products. They would give it the brand guidelines, feed it a campaign message and a slogan and a typography and colors, and give it everything it needs to understand that brand in its nuanced way, that it's different and differentiated from every one other brand out there. Then give it to AI, which references that training data, which is just your training data, it's no one else's, and produces an end result. And a good example of this is what Coca-Cola did, I think, for their Christmas campaign last December. They've been around for donkeys of years, but they made their Christmas campaign out of their old content. So they trained their own LLM on all of their content and created their Christmas campaign. Now, only Coca-Cola can do that because they've got all the data that they need to train the model in the right way to get the right end result. So that's where agencies can start to bring back control in terms of being able to help brands differentiate, which has always been the goal of agencies, stand out. There's no point looking the same as everyone else. We've got to look different. And that's, I think, where we can get to curating that training data, but then ultimately surgical application of data and processes. Even in some of the brands we work with, the scale of them, you'd be surprised, maybe not surprised, but you'd be surprised how bad their data is. It's still working on spreadsheets and back end of napkins, and it's awful. And that seems to be actually the biggest shift. So where we're not seeing any impact in AI is actually because the data is so bad that we can't leverage AI in any sort of meaningful way. So again, another opportunity potentially for agencies to think about, how do we help brands sanitize their data? How do we teach them about what their data could look like to get the best end result at the end of it as well? And it's just part of adapting as an agency, which is look at the technology. It's just another tool. It's a good tool. It's a great tool, potentially misused. But how do we add value as an agency is interesting and something to look at. I did have a slide about what you could do with all that. So once you've got all that nailed, then anything arguably is possible with AI, and personalization and localization and curating different things. But you can't do any of that unless you've got the first bit. If you try and do that without any of the curation stuff, you're going to get work slop at the end of it. Okay, so we must lean into the strengths. I won't labour that point. We're considering this new service model, which is kind of, again, a hark back to the way where we value ideas. We value the input that we put into an idea, and execution is the easy bit. Again, technology is not quite there in terms of execution, but it's getting there. So we're looking at it like a retainer-based model where we do the creative direction and we consult on AI scaling as an option, not just the execution. So value-based rather than time-based. The reality is we don't really know what's going to come next. It looks like we're seeing the bubble burst a little bit in LLMs and AI. I think starting to get to the end of their training data, and things aren't looking like it's going to scale at the same pace that they've been trying to tell us it's going to for such a long time. So the curtain slipping a little bit, and we're starting to see behind the curtain, and they are very good at making it sound so grandiose and amazing, but all it's doing is predicting what might come next based on the training data. So, but to answer this question, we've started a new business called Human Plus, which is a research and development agency, studio, lab, I don't know what you'd call it. And we're looking at this problem. We're looking at how do we leverage AI and its unbelievable capability in the right way to help humans elevate their creativity, or enable brands to grow, or enable businesses to respond to AI challenges in a different way. So, amplify human capability, and that's Human Plus. And we are learning a huge amount through the process. We're talking to a lot of businesses. We didn't start with any sort of fixed agenda with Human Plus, but there was a lot of opportunity because everyone's trying to figure this out. So we ended up consulting with a lot of businesses at all scales and finding a very common theme in a lot of them. We worked with the New Scientist and the Daily Mail, unfortunately. Worked with them a little bit, and they are a massive business with lots of sub-businesses and so on. Consulted with small businesses, big businesses, and all through that process we were just learning. We're learning how do they plan to approach AI. What's become consistent in a lot of these businesses is just a blanket statement of like, you cannot use AI ever. Do not put our data into it. Don't touch it. Don't use it for anything. That's also true actually in our clients' brands as well. Just said, do not use AI. So there's a mistrust of it coming into to businesses at the highest level, but also a misunderstanding as well. So we saw this like common thread happening time and time again, that businesses can't use it because their legal team had decided, do not touch it, and understanding why. There's issues around data governance, there's issues around, is our data safe? Is it being trained? And our competitors are going to get our data, all those kind of things. And we think we've got an answer, and we're building it now. So we're in very early stages of building our first product with Human Plus, and looking for, what's the word? Early adopters, or people to help us make it better, basically. So we've got some people on board already, but yeah, we're moving forward on that as well. So I think I've said a lot and spoken at you for a long time, so thank you for listening. Q&A. Yeah.
So the first question I have is, what was really the catalyst to starting Human Plus? Because obviously you've led and sold and been in lots of different businesses before. What was the spark point for you?
Yeah, I think it was it was value driven in a certain way because I could see this like fear that everyone was feeling that humans are going to be replaced, and I didn't really have the answer either. And I was leading some of these businesses with people in them who were asking me that question: what are we going to do? And I didn't have the answer. So it was partly that. There was a good friend of mine that we've actually a previous colleague, but we stayed in touch and we kept talking about this challenge, about like, what does it mean? His career had gone a certain trajectory that meant that he was in this space. He was working for an AI business and knew what was happening within the technology space. And it felt like the right time. It felt natural. It felt like, okay, we need to go answer this ourselves. We need to go and create something to go figure out what this is. And we had a lot of positive interest very early on. We got a professor from York University helped us out. We had a PhD researcher helped us out as well, and it felt like everyone was trying to answer this question, and it felt like a natural step really to create this new business that could answer these questions in a meaningful way. The key being that we wanted to be Human Plus, not sit on the fear side and try and replace everyone to try and get growth. It was more about like, how do we use this technology to elevate people? And some of the things we've learned that I've said today, I only learned through that process in the last 6 months of like trying to think this through and figure this out, and talking to people much smarter than me. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Fabulous. Okay, so we've got any? That's me being greedy over. We've got some more questions. Bethan, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for that. That was super, super interesting. So I totally get, and I completely agree with you about where AI is adding value kind of upstream. The execution problem though is really interesting because a lot of marketing execution is still really, really shit and reliant on kind of taste and preference of the creator. And do you foresee any kind of applications at that end as well that agencies could apply?
Do you mean like design subjective and the execution is terrible?
Yeah, you see a lot of stuff. I mean, so my background client side, so I've seen a lot of stuff coming out of agencies that is just poor. Yeah.
I think that's always been a challenge, arguably, of agencies, is like quality. And I think that we would just put the same stamp on that as like, are we happy with this going to the client ultimately? And I think quality control is important, and that's somewhere AI can actually help, is quality of output. But I think also there is a technology gap at the minute on the execution side. There's models that say they can do great things but can't, And I think that's the harsh reality right now. And that's not to say it won't get there eventually, but we're trying to project where the puck's going to go in terms of what execution tools are available to us to be able to execute as an agency. We may build some of them ourselves to get us there quicker. And it is moving quickly. Like the latest Gemini VO3 model is ridiculous at what it can do. But again, you have to give it the right information to get the right end result. But I think there's like agency land is always about adaptation to whatever tools you've got available to you at that moment as well. So there'll be some who will figure it out. There'll be some who can't. And if they produce bad work, the market will tell them that. Yeah.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit of a complex one.
Yeah.
Do we have a question over here? Did you have a question?
Yes, a comment. I was intrigued by the Coca-Cola doing campaigns from when you looked at previous campaigns. I was also reminded of the later BBC adverts. I don't know if you've seen it, with the different clips from different parts of the country. They basically go around the country and they have clips from famous shows that were very location based. I wonder if you thought that was a kind of example of archival material.
I haven't seen that one, unfortunately, but
If you can see it, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it may well have been, but yeah, it's if they've got the data and they can train the models on that data and then get a good result, then yeah, it may well have been. Yeah. I mean, the concept is called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation, and that's something we're toying with as well at the moment, and it's filling it full of data in a really contained way, giving that data context and strength and weighting, and then calling that data to produce the end result. And yeah, it'll be. I'll have a look, see what that one is. Yeah.
Amazing. Any other questions? Yeah, I think.
Two things. One, I'm just curious about why you're now in York, and you're talking about Brighton, and what is it about York that brought you here? I don't know. It might be personal things, but
It is personal things, but I don't mind.
The second thing I wanted to say was that in this year, as my colleagues run web application firewalls, we've always struggled with bots, but this year we seem to have seen a big escalation in crawlers coming from AI and scraping content off our sites. And just recently I came across the idea that one company that runs content delivery networks, web application firewalls, Cloudflare, which some of you will have heard of, I'm sure, I came across the idea that they're going to build in a mechanism, or have built in a mechanism, to allow you to charge AI to scrape your content.
Oh, interesting.
And I just wondered if you'd come across that.
I've seen their feature to stop bots crawling your site.
Yes.
So maybe that's the logical next step, is to charge, to allow the bot to charge it. Yeah. I haven't seen that part, but that is a sensible idea, actually. Yeah, that's good. But it is because they're running out of data. They literally have no more data to train their bots on, and the need to just access. You'll see recently Claude changed their policies regardless of pay plan you're on. They now train on your data that you're sharing with it as well, and historically as well. So if you've used Claude historically and you're continuing to pay, they can train on your historic data. And then OpenAI have just done the same in the last week or so. I think they've now changed their policy to train on the data you're sending to them as well. So there's a huge security issue there for everyone. But the problem is they've run out of data. They can't keep this seemingly growth of features or what am I trying to say? Like the effectivity of the LLMs. They can't keep that trajectory going because they're running out of data. So it's not getting smarter. They need to find data from somewhere. So yeah, there's lots of underhanded. We're not going to build our own LLM. We're taking a different approach. Yeah.
And that is.
Thank you for asking. Yeah. So we're taking an approach of being vendor agnostic. So we're building an interface layer that sits on top of the LLMs. We let them do whatever they're doing in their smoke and mirrors and tech bro approach to this technology. We want to focus on the safe way of using this technology. So we're building a tool that will allow you to use any LLM in a safe way, meaning your data is not shared with the LLM. It's in a ring-fenced area. You can use all the prominent LLMs or any others that we add in there as well, but we've checked them to see if they're safe, what they do with your data, if there's like data governance issues, anything like that, and then we give you access to those LLMs to use. And this came out of the common challenges that we were seeing in businesses. Is the primary reason they were saying stop using AI was data governance. We don't know where our data is going. We don't want our finance team to put all our finance information into ChatGPT, and then they're training on that information, or worse, competitors can now see that information because it's now part of the LLM's training data. That was the biggest challenge. So we've built an MVP of this, and it's working. And yeah, the whole concept is safety, really. And we're going down that road of how do we not just make it safe, but educate as well. So the education part of the tool is just as important because of this misunderstanding. I think most people will think it's a thinking, considering, reasoning brain that can replace things in their life, and it isn't. So we want to educate in the steps as well. So when you get a response, why did it respond like that? How do we get a better response? Safeguarding. So if there's a risk in the prompt, if it's, you've seen some of the sensationalized stories around suicide ideation or things like that have come up recently, is how do we protect people from this technology in a certain sense as well? So yeah, that's what we're building currently. Yeah.
I think we had a question up at the bar.
Hi, so I just sort of want to tell you about something to get your view on AI transparency and whether you should declare stuff. So I'm less interested in text-based stuff. I'm an architect. I'm more interested in AI renderings, I call them. So the renderings plus AI stuff. And what I found is if they're printed out, and I did a short run of like just printing them on postcards and sending them to people, and they would call up and say, where is it? If it's local, where is it? And I go, it's not real. I made it here. And I sort of want to know what your sort of take on that is. Do you see any laws coming up soon where you have to declare AI generated stuff? And sort of what's the difference between generated and supported and enhanced and all these adjectives that you hear about? You know?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I don't know if you've seen the government stance on AI in the UK. They're trying to follow the US to a certain degree from a law point of view. So they've put very little protections in place. They've gone for a innovation first strategy with it. So they don't want to gatekeep things. They don't want to stop people using AI. They don't want people to stop adopting it and using it because they don't want to be left behind on the global stage. But also that does mean it's a bit Wild West out there, and that people can go and do anything. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. In terms of how you flag things, that it's getting good at pretending, right? It's getting good at faking intelligence. It's getting good at producing what looks real. I think there's still tells. You can still kind of tell, but yeah.
An Instagram account about this like blonde pretty woman.
Yeah.
Like, do you see that?
Yeah, well, we actually trialed one with a client.
And everyone thought it was real.
Yeah.
Do you see any sort of criminality in that, or like?
Probably. Well, no, I think it's unclear. I don't think we figured this out yet. I don't think we've figured it out. Yeah.
I'm not saying what I'm saying is, I'm doing AI. You're the one that comes. What I'm saying is like, would it be false advertising? Because in the market I'm in, right? There's another competitor called like gardenroom.com. They have 150 units, and they're all CGI. They're well done. It's better than I can do really on the end. But they've never been made. And I'm sort of wondering if like, is it like, if someone claimed, I thought this was already being built before, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people have said like it's false advertising. There's another company called Mango, they're fashion people. They did a series of, it was quite early on actually, and they got a lot of backlash for that.
Yeah.
They stopped the campaign. And I sort of think like maybe it's not really worth it, because at the end of the day, the only reason you're sort of using AI stuff is to make better marketing images. than renderings.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like bad. Maybe it's just so many people that don't like AI and they go, as soon as I found out about AI, I'm not touching this company at all. No.
Yeah. I think it's
Think
just.
that'll change, or?
I think it will, but I don't know how, because the government's gone for the innovation first approach. There's not going to be any sort of legal governance necessarily. I mean, we have the EU AI Act in the EU, but we don't have that here. So I think I agree with you in a moral sense that we shouldn't be like trying to hoodwink people into believing this is real and trying, but marketing's always attempted to do that, right? We've always tried to sell a different image of something and sell a lifestyle. This is just a new way of trying to do that, but I don't think it's right necessarily. But
For example, with the, I'm talking a lot. I don't drink alcohol. With the Blonde Woman of Wimbledon, I mean, Instagram's quite a popular place for like romance cons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so there is sort of some potential there that, you know, men are following her, hoping to
Yep.
her and stuff.
Yeah.
And she could say, "Oh, I'll come round to your place. I need a train ticket or whatever."
Send me this. Yeah.
And I sort of think maybe, I don't know really when, but I anticipate some law coming soon.
Yeah.
I sort of
Maybe.
feel like we're in a sort of-
Not. It doesn't feel like it. I forget the guy's name. The Kyle something. The minister who manages. That's him. Yeah. And yeah, innovation first is the line he's going with, right? He's like unlocking it and letting people just go and do what they need to do with it. I mean, they are doing some work on the Gov AI tool is coming out soon, if not already out in some sense. But yeah, it's a bit Wild West. I think it's a bit Wild West at the moment, and I think there's an acceptance of that whilst we figure it out, so that we're not left behind. But even in where we're at today in the UK, we are still quite far behind the US and where they're at, because their laws are even less stringent and less strict. So it's worse over there, or better, depending on your perspective. Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
We're a search agency, so like organic and paid search and results in that manner. I think previously the guy mentioned Cloudflare earlier. He said you might want to block in looking at websites from a security point of view. Now, from our perspective, Google's moving towards AI first. As always, anyway, they prefer PMAX to search as they prefer AI overviews to search results. Do you find there might be a limitation for your clients if you block LLMs reviewing you, that you might not get results on Google traffic and sponsored ads featuring? Could be an actual revenue impact if you block them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We've got two angles. One is like the brochure side, where we need that data to be accessible. If someone says, "What time is my harvester open?" they can get that information, so we have to allow it. And then the other side is Shopify's integrated with ChatGPT, for example, as well, so you can shop directly from. And if you're not there, you're not there. So there's a big move towards using LLMs to do your shopping. I don't know. I don't think I've met anyone who's actually bought a product yet through ChatGPT. This might actually be one of those areas where we can't do that yet in the UK, actually. I think it might just be the US thing. But yeah, I mean, that's a monetization route for these LLMs, I guess, is to take over Google's market share. And I think that is happening. So yeah, again, Wild West to a certain degree, but I think that we have to let LLMs crawl sites when the focus is conversion or sale or anything like that, in the same way that we let bots crawl. But you'll know better than me around how we control them doing that in the right way. Yeah.
I think we have one more at the bar, and then I've got another question, and I think...
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got an interest in the companies that you were part of that got acquired. Were they built to exit, or were you just part of the company that... Was that the intention?
Yeah.
What was the name of the...
Loco 2 was the name.
Was that the intention from the get-go?
It was. Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar with the train world at all. It was a train ticketing platform, so you could buy a ticket, for example, from York to Rome, and we gave you like it all in your language, in your currency, in an itinerary. You could just go to platform 6. So it was a nice travel app. The idea being easier to travel on train than go on a plane, because planes kill the world. So that was the idea. But yeah, because of the concept of it, it was so big that you couldn't just do it in your bedroom or do it on a small scale. It had to go big. It had to go like to a large scale quite quickly. So for the first, I think, 5 years, every time we sold a ticket, we made a loss. So the margins were so small. So we had to be funded. We had to move quickly because we were then funded by angels and private equity, we had to get to exit quickly because they needed their money back. We were just burning cash, so it was we had a burn down. We had to get there. We had a lot of back and forth bidding and stuff like that, and it was very stressful, and it was a great experience, to be honest. Looking back, at the time it was hard.
Do you see Human Plus as potentially a company that you could exit from one of like the big AI players? Or
No. That would not be the intention of Human Plus, but the Human Plus is a think tank, which is a product development studio with the intention to spin out a product, which is we're in the process of doing our flagship product. That product, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we had another question here.
Yeah, I was just intrigued by how you see, how well equipped you see the creative community, which obviously is your background from, to go into that sort of data first analysis. I'm thinking more general than you specifically, because it strikes me that in order to monetize, you've got to be able to hold your, stand toe to toe with a different audience than you traditionally stood toe to toe with.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear, as with many jobs at the minute, but within the creative role, I can only speak from my experience with my creatives at the moment. There's a little bit of burying the head in the sand, kind of avoiding what's coming sort of thing, which I think is common, expected, arguably, as well, but it's also just a misunderstanding about what the potential is, where we could potentially go, and actually that could be more exciting. We don't have to spend 16 hours every day pushing pixels around Photoshop. We could be ideating, we could be coming up with great ideas, huge creative campaigns, doing all the photography work, the video work, all that kind of stuff that needs to go with it to teach the LLM what we want as an outcome, instead of actually grinding it through. Like, we have a team of juniors who just sit and grind pixels every day. Put that type on there, put that photo there, make sure it's this size, send it for approval. That's not a great use of a human capacity, surely. I think there's more there, but it's getting over that barrier of, like, humans naturally are fearful of change, right? I think that's expected. So I don't.
Reskilling, I guess, is the...
There's an element of that as well, but yeah. There's a comfort to the execution tools. I'm going to stay here. I know how to use Photoshop. I've spent my whole career using Photoshop or whatever. Yeah. There's got to be a bit of a change, but I think a positive change if we get it right. If we don't, but if we believe the hype, if we believe all this, we're all replaced and we're doomed. That's quite scary. But I don't think it's the reality. Yeah.
Hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what Human Plus is going to do? What's the sort of aim of that? And you're alluding to a product. What sort of product is it? Without obviously giving away the farm, what is it that, a bit more detail around that?
Yeah, so the name of the product is called Halo Base, and it's a secure way to, so the headline is privacy, control and clarity. So using LLMs in a safe way. So the intention of Human Plus is to create these types of products in the long term. This will be our flagship, so our 100% focus for the short term. But the idea is like looking at the products that can really unlock human capability through LLMs in a safe way. So we're building Halo Base as our first product. We're going to continue Human Plus as an R&D think tank behind the scenes as well to think about, okay, what else comes next? We have some idea already, but this first product feels like the gateway, arguably, to allow us to do the next thing, which could just be an evolution of that product, or it could be a new product that we spin out and take to market separately. That's to be decided. But Human Plus will stay as a focused on the challenge of ignore the tech bros nonsense about their marketing spin on we're going to replace everyone. How do we leverage the technology but in a safe way to get where we want to go in a better way? So that could be other products, could be other ideas. We don't know yet, but we'll keep turning over those rocks. And we've got a good group of people as well. We've got a professor, a PhD, and so on helping us with that conversation. Someone high up in Amazon is supporting that project as well in terms of thinking about what those could look like, and yeah.
Is this with so University of York? Who's the professor?
Dan Franks. You probably come. I think he's been here before. Yeah.
I think there's one more in the back, and then I've got one more, and then we'll give you a breather.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, I run an AI and content agency, and I've got two questions basically on like the exit side of things. With AI being able to do more and more, do you think like agencies, like say AI agencies, would be able to exit, or is that kind of sort of floor everything and AI is going to do everything for you? And you mentioned optimism. Are you optimistic, pessimistic? What's your stance in the next 10 years?
I'm optimistic. I think it's easy to be cynical because of what the tech bros tell us this technology can do. I don't think it can do that, and I think that there's one risk, which is that we will assume it can do great things, and then there's just a brain drain of capability because we just outsource all our thinking and our doing to AI, and actually it's just eating its own tail and producing the same slop and round and round in circles. I'm optimistic because I think humans are uniquely talented at coming up with new ideas. That's what we can do, and that AI can't do that. It can only just look at its data and produce a result. So it needs us to create more and better results. And I didn't catch what you said your business was, but I think there's a positive way of looking at this is that LLMs is just a tool. We can bring a lot of ideas and creativity to the challenge, and we still need to do that as well as things go on. I forgot half your question. Did I answer it? Yeah.
Fabulous. I'll ask the last one, and then you're hanging around afterwards, aren't you, for more questions? So you've mentioned the word fear a few times, and you've obviously talked a lot about the varied challenges that there are in doing what you do. What would you say the biggest, not blocker, but the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome has been? Has it been legislative? Has it been people? Has it been the technology? Or is the challenge that there's just so many?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, probably people. I think is probably the biggest challenge in the way that people see the technology, and the fear that comes with it as well. I think is like a blocker to us actually really thinking critically about it. Silicon Valley and like the 5 or 6 major LLMs are so good at spinning the magic and making it feel like this is going to change everything. And there's a reality in between that, which is hugely powerful. That's great, but I don't think it's doing us any favors because we're fearful of it. And actually, we need to think of it as a tool. How do we leverage it? How do we make our lives better by using this tool? And I think the bubble will burst. I think there'll be a rationalization of like what this is. And it's great, it's amazing. We're just overselling it, we're overhyping it at the moment. And I think there's a reality to it that is more accessible to people. And I think that, coming back to your question, people has been the biggest challenge because it's been this like recoil, at least in the business context or with the brands we work with, is just don't use it, we don't want to. There's the fear of engaging with it in some sort of meaningful way. And I think it's like anything new, we're trying to figure it out, what it means, how do we use this? And the first response is always push it away, get it out, don't want anything to do with it, and I don't think that's the right answer. So yeah, people, I would say, and we don't have to move quickly at this, we don't have to go and like, change everything straight away. I get we need time to understand it and figure it out, and that's important. But yeah, I don't think we should just dismiss it either, or believe the hype either.
Fab.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And for those of you that know I work in HR and people, I didn't ask you to say people at the end, so that wasn't a plan. Lovely, thank you very much. I've got a final bit of housekeeping, which is to say that the last drinks order is at 9. We're here until 9:30, so please have a mingle. Please, ask more questions or speak to someone you haven't spoken to before, because that's what we're here for.
Thank you.